When it comes to fitness, I feel like one of the biggest misconceptions women have is that lifting weights will make them look bulky. As women, we have so much social pressure to conform to a certain beauty standard where we're expected to be petite, toned, and skinny. From a very young age, I remember women around me proudly saying that they skipped breakfast or they stopped eating carbs or they did an insane amount of cardio to fit into a smaller size jeans. On top of that, we constantly get bombarded by unrealistic beauty standards on social media, so no wonder we're in a constant battle of trying to be the smallest version of ourselves. 5 years ago, I started weightlifting and it has been the best decision of my life. I don't even recognize myself in some of my old photos because so much of the way I think has changed. So in this video, I am going to share my experience over the last 5 years, and I am going to show you that weightlifting is the exact way that you can get that toned physique that you dream of, and I'm going to show you how to do that without getting bulky. What do you picture when I say bulky? Do you picture a woman bodybuilder with a lot of muscle? Or do you picture just an overall larger, stockier physique? I think that in both cases, the common thread is that we associate bulky to masculine, whether it is by having an excessive amount of muscle or just overall a larger frame. But here's the thing, you guys. Building muscle is an extremely difficult and slow process. Trust me, because over the last 5 years, I have really tried to put on as much muscle as I can, and it has taken me so much effort to get to where I am today. So men have 10 to 20 times more testosterone than us women. So that means that it's going to be a lot easier for them to put on muscle compared to a woman. To put this into perspective for you guys, say you took a man and a woman who started to follow a strength training program, men would usually put on 1 to 2 pounds of muscle per month versus women who would put on about 0.5 to 1 pound of muscle per month. And from my experience, it's more like 0.5 pounds per muscle per month. So you really don't have to worry about starting to weightlift and suddenly putting on a ton of muscle and starting to look like a bodybuilder. Instead, I have found that putting on muscle has really helped me create some curves, but it also has really helped me balance my proportions. So I used to think that I was just born with a pear-shaped body where I had really large hips and thighs, and I really hated that. Once I started working out, I actually realized that that was not the case. I simply had a very underdeveloped upper body, whereas my legs were more muscular because I used to play volleyball and run, and all of my home workouts were more lower body centered. And when it came to my upper body, I was so weak that honestly, I didn't even think that I had muscles in my back, and I had no clue how to work them out because I feel like it's a lot more challenging to work out your upper body at home. With weightlifting, even though I didn't work out my upper body right away, over the last 5 years, I do feel like I have put on a substantial amount of muscle in my upper body, and that has really helped me create that illusion of a smaller waist and an hourglass shape. I also find that a stronger back and core can really influence the way you stand and your posture, and just that by itself can make you look a lot more confident and with balanced proportions. Another huge benefit, you guys, and probably the biggest one for me, is that having more muscle allows you to eat so much more. My current maintenance is about 2,000 calories per day, and I find that's a really good place to be, especially because I'm only walking about 8,000 steps a day and working out 4 times a week without doing much cardio. With that amount of calories, I can eat 3 full meals and have something sweet every day. And if I added more cardio, which I am hoping to do this year, I could either get leaner or I could just eat more. Like, I'm no longer that person that's trying to survive on 1,500 calories. and starving herself. No, instead I'm trying to eat to fuel my body, to feel strong and good. So the reason muscle helps you eat more is because it is a metabolically active tissue. What that means is that it requires more calories to maintain muscle versus fat. For every pound of muscle, your body burns an estimated 6 to 10 calories per day, whereas fat burns only about 2 to 4 calories. So the more muscle you have, the more you increase your resting metabolic rate, which means your body naturally burns more calories throughout the day. That's why I feel like weightlifting is an essential part of weight loss, just because it is going to boost your metabolism, which is going to help you get to your goals a lot easier. And personally, I actually prioritize weightlifting to cardio when it comes to weight loss, because it also just makes your body look so much better. And that brings me to my next point, which is that muscle really makes your body look a lot firmer, gives it some definition, and gives you that toned look. I've also found that if you have cellulite, like 99% of women, it also makes it look a lot less pronounced because it kind of firms your skin. And honestly, I don't even pay attention to my cellulite anymore. Whereas it used to be such a huge complex for me in the past. Like nowadays, I feel like even if I gained a little bit of weight, like right now, I am sitting at 140 pounds, which is one of the heaviest weights I've been in a while, but I still feel like my body looks pretty good in a bikini because I still have a lot of muscle and that kind of hourglass shape, smaller waist. I just kind of don't have as much definition as I would if I was at a lower weight. But honestly, that doesn't even bother me that much. It's just a kind of natural fluctuation of my weight, because I know that if I wanted to get leaner, it would only take me about 2-3 months to get really lean. Whereas putting on muscle is a much slower process, and it took me over 5 years to get to where I am today. So in my opinion, the first step to transforming your physique and getting your dream body is to try and put on as much muscle as you can and focus on areas that you want to enhance. For us girls, usually that's the glutes, and I know guys usually focus on their chest. And I'm saying this from experience, but when it comes to us women, I feel like the biggest transformation only happens when we're able to let go of that number on the scale and shift our focus to what we can do and how strong we become. Especially when you are in a gaining phase, I feel like the scale doesn't paint a full picture of how your body is transforming, because it's not showing you how much muscle versus fat you're putting on. It's just showing you that you gained weight. And trust me, I know that this could be really triggering at times and even hold us back from making any progress. But accepting the growth phase really is an important mind shift, because it is the first step towards transforming your body. For example, my weight has been increasing as I build muscle. And my set point used to be about 133 pounds. Then it increased to 135, then to 138, and now it might even be at 140 pounds. And what I mean by set point is the body fat percentage that's really easy for me to maintain. So what that means is, say I go on vacation and I gain a few pounds, when I come back home and fall back into my usual habits, I would just incredibly fast bounce back to that exact weight that I call my set point. Let me give you an example. Say you start your weightlifting journey and you are sitting at 25% body fat. You then put on 5 pounds, from which half is muscle and half is fat. Now you weigh 5 pounds more, but you also have more muscle, and your body fat percentage hasn't changed. You could get fixated on the fact that you weigh 5 pounds more, or you could look at the bigger picture and see that you look better, you feel better, you're stronger. So the benefits really outweigh the fact that you are 5 pounds heavier. Another reason why you should let go of the scale is that when you start weightlifting, you're going to go through phases of inflammation and soreness. So sometimes you'll have more water retention, and that's going to show as a couple more pounds on the scale. And I know this is something that could stop a lot of new lifters, because it's really counterintuitive. You start to work out to get leaner and look better, but then the scale is suddenly increasing really quickly. This is why sometimes you're going to hear to trust the process, because the scale is going to be going up, but you are going to look better. And this is where it's really important to take before and after photos and measurements, because really the scale cannot paint the full picture. The important thing to realize is that this is not fat gain, it's just water retention. For example, over the years, I no longer fit in the same size clothing. I have literally outgrown my clothes because I've put on more muscle. But this next part is really important because I want to make sure that you don't make one of the biggest mistakes that beginners make, and a mistake that I made as a beginner, which is eating way too much without working out hard enough. So the challenging part of building muscle is gauging how much muscle versus fat you're putting on and trying to make sure that you're not putting on too much fat in the process. So this is where nutrition comes in, and it's also a really important part of this process. Often, if you're not seeing progress, it's either your training or your nutrition that you need to tweak. And as a beginner, I really feel like training comes first, because your main goal should be to put on muscle. And then as a second step, lose fat so that you can reveal that muscle. Because having a toned physique really means having enough muscle so that when you lose body fat, you can get that toned and defined look. If you don't have muscle in the first place, there is really no point of losing weight, because you're still not going to get that toned look. So building muscle really is the first step, and losing fat the second. So it's really hard not to gain any fat during a building phase. However, there are ways that you can minimize the amount of fat you put on. So when it comes to nutrition, there's only two things you really need to focus on. And that is one, eating enough protein. So eating 0.7 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. And two, eating in a very small surplus. Like, you're going to see so many people bulking really fast on the internet. And the thing is that when you bulk really quickly, sometimes you end up putting on way too much fat. And this is definitely not my preferred way of gaining muscle, especially if you're trying to avoid looking bulky. Personally, I really prefer to try and main gain versus bulk, because I like to fit in the same size clothes and don't really want to go through extreme cycles of bulking and cutting. So instead, I really aim for a small calorie surplus, trying to put on about 1 pound per month. And hopefully half of that is muscle and half of that is fat, and I can kind of keep my body fat percentage about the same throughout my main gaining phase. By following this process, I usually only gain about 6 to 8 pounds over the course of a year, and then I would just do a 2-month cut at the end of the year so that I can get a lot leaner. It's almost like a tiny, slow, lean bulk and then a little cutting phase. I much prefer this process because I have found that if I stay in a cutting phase for a long time, I end up losing more muscle. So it's not beneficial. It's also really, really unpleasant to be in a cutting phase for a long time. This is really the way that I have found that works for me, so that I can progressively put on muscle without getting too bulky. Another huge takeaway, you guys, and a mistake that I have made when I was starting, is that you really need to be patient when it comes to muscle building, because it does take time. So you can't be just bulking and cutting all the time, because you just won't see any progress. It really takes a prolonged phase of a surplus or main gaining in order for you to build a visible amount of muscle, especially as you progress in your fitness journey and you become more and more advanced in your weight training. I hope I've been able to prove to you that you can build muscle without getting bulky. And I hope that I have shown you what to pay attention to and watch out for in the process. If you are ready to start working out, you can check out my complete workout program up here, designed to focus on glute growth in a very minimalist and time-efficient way. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up, and I will see you in the next one.